Welcome back to Couch Decoders. In this lesson, we are going to practice our keyword distinct in a select statement. Keeping up with our outline, we've already completed our first part of the module, Hello, Mr. Distinguish, where we introduced the keyword and I did an example. In this lesson, you're going to have a chance to get your hands dirty and practice on your own. Let's get started. This example is broken up into 3 parts. Part A, what are the unique number of vendor IDs? Part B, what are the unique rate codes? And Part C combines both of these together. Find the unique combinations of vendor ID and rate code. First, think about which columns you need for each part. Second, how do you handle duplicates if you find them in your data? Third, while you're practicing and building your query, I would suggest having your limit keyword on until you feel confident, and then you can turn it off and find all of the unique values. And as a sanity check, Part C should return 14 rows. Pause the video, give yourself a few minutes, and when you're ready, we'll go over the answer together. Let's go over those answers together. So the first thing that I like to do, as always, is just take a look at my data. So I already have my yellow trip data up here, but if I didn't, I could just do Control, click, and BigQuery would populate the data for me. So the first question is about vendor ID, and we want to know the unique number of vendors. I see immediately that I have duplicates in the data. Just scrolling through, it looks like there might only be a vendor 1 and a vendor 2, but I can't confirm that without pulling a query because I have so many rows. It's possible that on page 5,000 that there is a vendor 3 or a vendor 4, so I can't be sure. For part A, I want to know what are the unique number of vendor IDs. The first part I'll do is copy my table over, and right underneath here I'm going to do select vendor ID from my table. I'll do a limit 10. I know there's going to be duplicates, but this is typically how I would start exploring data. So I pull it up and I see exactly as we saw in the preview of data, I see that there are a lot of duplicates here. To get rid of the duplicates, I just have to add a distinct in front of my column name. Distinct vendor ID. And now I'm going to enter again. Control Enter to run it. And I see I have, as expected, 2 vendor IDs, vendor 1 and vendor 2. You might remember in our previous example, I had the limit on when I was finding the number of unique pickup locations, and I had to turn it off because there were so many pickup locations. How did I know that I didn't need to do that here? Well, that's because I told BigQuery the most rows that you can pull back for me is 10, and the number of rows it pulled back is 2. If it pulled back exactly 10 rows, I'm going to be suspicious that there are more values that are not being shown because of the limit. So that's how I knew. For part B, this is a very similar question, so I'm just going to do the handy dandy copy paste. And if I leave my queries like this, you're going to get an error. Expected end of input, but got keyword select. That's because in BigQuery, you can only run one query at a time. By leaving this query and this query open, BigQuery says, hey, I thought you were done and you started again. So I have to either delete this query or I can comment it out. So BigQuery ignores it. To comment it out, I just hit Control question mark. For part B, we want to know what are the unique rate codes. So I'm just going to swap vendor ID for rate code. And now I'm going to hit Control question mark. For part C, we want to know what are the unique vendor IDs. So I'm just going to swap vendor ID for rate code. and hit Control Enter. And I see here, it looks like I have 7 rate codes. And again, because 7 is less than 10, I know that this is all of the rate codes and my limit didn't cut any off. Looking at the rate codes, I see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 99. This 99 might stick out to you and it might be like, what's this doing? Typically in data, if you have a bunch of numbers that make sense, 1 through 6, and then you have a crazy number, 99, maybe -1, maybe 99999, something like that, this typically means this is an unknown value. So if it has a rate code 1 through 6, that has a meaning in the data. And if it has a value of 99, that probably means that there's something not wrong with the data, but we might be missing some information. Just something to keep in mind. Now, the next piece is I want to find the unique combinations of vendor ID and rate code. I have a couple scenarios that could happen. The most rate code vendor IDs I could have would be 14. How do I know that? Well, there's only 7 rate codes. So if vendor 1 had every single rate code tied to it, that would be 7. And then if vendor 2 also had those same 7 rate codes, that would also be 7. So between the two of them, that would be 14, 7 plus 7. It's very possible that these rate codes are not shared between the two vendors. What if vendor 1 can get rate codes 1 through 3 and vendor 2 can get rate codes 4 through 6, and then they both have the missing one? That could be a possibility. We don't know the exact combination of rate codes and vendor IDs until we pull it. So let's do that now. So here we go. So I'm going to do select distinct vendor ID, comma, rate code. You'll notice that I only need to apply distinct one time. I don't have to say, give me distinct vendor IDs and then distinct rate codes. I'll get an error for that. It would say expected end of input but got distinct. SQL is basic, or BigQuery is basically saying, why do you have distinct in there twice? This is weird. So I need to delete that distinct and leave it like this. So now it says this query will run, and I can hit Control Enter and run my query. And so I see I have vendor 1 and 2 and the different rate codes, but I see that the number of rows is cut off at 10. This makes me suspicious that maybe my limit function is not showing me all of the combinations. So I'm going to turn it off this time. So now I just have select distinct from. And voila, I have 1 of 14, which matches the answer that we have. Now that we've gone over the solution, let's go back to the PowerPoint and wrap up this lesson. In today's lesson, we completed 3 different examples using the distinct function. In our next lesson, we will use the order by statement and introduce a new keyword. See you then. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I would be so appreciative if you could like the video and subscribe to help me create more content for you. Thank you.